So hello, my name is Emilio Angeles. I am the acting manager at the NATO Association of Canada, a charitable NGO dedicated to informing Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO. Most Canadians don't have to give peace and security a second thought. And that's what the NATO Association strives to do, is to remind our listeners just how amazing that is, and that it is only possible because Canada is part of a collaborative alliance dedicated to mutual defense to maintain peace. And so today, it's my pleasure to continue this conversation about the relationships we have with some of our NATO allies across the sea. And so we will be talking about Slovakia. And I'm thrilled to introduce two of our discussion partners who will then introduce the ambassador who is joining us today. Adwat Sharma is one of our program editors, and Brittany Best is one of his associates at the NATO Association of Canada. And they will take us on an important discussion on the transatlantic relationship today. Adwat and Brittany, take us away.
Thank you very much, Emilio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our series of events discussing the future of North Atlantic cooperation. My name is Adwat Sharma, and I'm a research analyst and ambassador coordinator at the NATO Association of Canada. As Emilio mentioned, we're a not-for-profit organization aimed at educating Canadians on the value of peace and importance of NATO.
My name is Brittany Best. I'm a program editor for Women in Security at the NATO Association of Canada. We are honored to be joined by His Excellency Vít Koziak, the Ambassador of the Slovak Republic to Canada. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador.
Ambassador Vít Koziak first moved to Canada in 2018, where he assumed the role as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Slovak Republic to Canada. In addition, the ambassador serves as the Permanent Representative of Slovakia to the International Civil Aviation Organization. Since 1999, the ambassador has enjoyed an extensive career in the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. His portfolio has included Coordinator, Directorate General for Global Challenges, Human Rights, United Nations, and other international organizations, as well as Director for Foreign Policy in the Office of the President of Slovakia. His academic background includes the Foreign Service Program at Queen's College at Oxford University and the Institute of International Relations, as well as being a member of the Philosophical Faculty at Comenius University, Bratislava in Slovakia. After that remarkable introduction, Ambassador, I'm now going to pass it on to my colleague Brittany to take it away.
We're going to start our conversation off with a video, which I think really will set the tone for what we're going to do here today.
My sme NATO. Slovensko je krajina žijúca mierom, ale situácia sa môže zmeniť z minúty na minútu.
V NATO sme preto, že nič lepšie pre našu bezpečnosť na medzinárodnej úrovni neexistuje.
Slovenská republika je rovnocenným partnerom pre ostatných členov Severoatlantickej aliancie.
A toto prinášame pre NATO. Kredibilitu, vernosť, zodpovednosť a stále dobre splnenie úloh.
Je to pre mňa prostriedok na udržanie mieru.
Keď chceme ochrániť naše rodiny, naše deti, je nevyhnutné byť súčasťou NATO. Niekto musí ochraňovať túto krajinu. Sloboda je dar. Dar, ktorý si musíme chrániť.
Slovensko je NATO.
My sme NATO.
And now we would like you to introduce yourself, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, really, dear friends. Thank you for inviting me for discussion. I have to say in the very beginning that I learned about NATO Association in Canada soon after my arrival to Canada almost 3 years ago. And I would like to really commend you for your excellent work that you are doing in promoting our alliance, in raising awareness of its importance and promoting relations of Canada with allies, including Slovakia. So thank you very much for this invitation. And I'm glad we started off with our today's discussion with a video shot from Slovakia's pro-NATO campaign called We Are NATO. It is part of our effort to counter a strong propaganda and disinformation in Slovakia. And this is a part of building resilience and also building support for NATO and strengthening the view of Slovaks, how NATO is important for our security and prosperity. Communication with publics, our publics, is truly of enormous importance for resilience as societies in the time when we face so much disinformation, hybrid activities, rising efforts to undermine our open democratic societies by sowing in polarization, by sowing distrust to our institutions, undermining our unity, resolve between us as allies, and trust between us as allies. Support for NATO cannot be taken for granted, whether in Canada or in Slovakia or in any other country. We need to remind this to our publics. In this context, let me please briefly promote a Slovak non-governmental organization and think tank called GLOBSEC. That's abbreviation from global security. So GLOBSEC is organization that is for a number of years is organizing an international security strategic forum in the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava. Actually, this June 15 to 17 of June will be already its 16th edition. In cooperation with the Slovak government, especially with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it brings together heads of governments, of states, representatives of international organizations, experts, and other decision makers to discuss most pressing issues, security issues in the Euro-Atlantic region and globally. And we were very happy last year to have Defense Minister of Canada, Sajan, joining one of the panels on the future of NATO. And I very much hope that we will have more Canadian speakers on the event and more Canadian attendees, including probably representatives of your organization, because we always have something to learn from each other and learn from exchanging between us. Let me now, in sort of three parts, speak about Slovakia and NATO, and I divided it in three paragraphs. First, some basic information. Then I would speak on the current and future challenges and threats, and then I will say just a few words about upcoming NATO summit, and then I will be looking forward to your questions. So Slovakia joined NATO already 17 years ago, together with the integration to the European Union in the same year, 2004. It was the most important foreign policy decision that we ever took, and we do not regret it. Slovakia became part of a strong family of like-minded countries which share common values of freedom, democracy, and are committed to their protection, and they are committed to our common defense and also to prevent conflicts in the world and just support peace in our region and in the Euro-Atlantic area and in the world itself. And I at the very beginning, I was gladly highlight that Canada was actually the first country to ratify Slovak Accession Treaty to NATO, and we will never forget it. The aim to join the EU and NATO was a no-brainer for us. We took these ambitions on us early after Slovakia became independent in 1993. Certainly, as you know, after a peaceful dissolution of our common state with Czechoslovakia. In these integration efforts, we followed the same path as other countries in the region, Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, Baltic countries, and others. It was a situation when Cold War ended in 1989, totalitarian communist regimes crumbled, and we were liberated from the spheres of influence, and in our case, sphere of influence of the former Soviet Union. We were free to choose our own future in the spirit of Europe, free and reunited. Joining NATO and the EU were for us two sides of the same coin of security, stability, and prosperity for our citizens. And I cannot stress enough the importance of the freedom of choice where we want to belong. This is why we are advocating for other countries to have the same opportunity, to have a door open, as long as they fulfill the obligations and commitments that are given. As far as NATO is concerned, we speak up for aspirants such as Ukraine, Georgia, or Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we not only speak, but we help them on their way. We really refuse spheres of influence. This is a very important message. Spheres of influence that some would like to reimpose again in Europe on independent and sovereign nations. NATO for Slovakia is the most successful political military defense alliance in the world. It provides security for 1 billion people. It is the main pillar of our security and defense. This is a clear statement reconfirmed also in our newly updated security strategy and in all our strategic documents. We see NATO also as the means for keeping a strong and enduring transatlantic bond and unity with the United States and Canada. At NATO, we sit at one table with countries big and small, and the opinion of everyone matters. I was privileged to accompany a President of Slovakia at several NATO summits, and it was always an unforgettable experience. There are frank discussions. We don't have to agree on everything, and it takes time, but at the end, decisions are taken by consensus, and everyone's opinion matters. NATO is an alliance based on solidarity. An attack on one of the members is the attack on everyone. All for one and one for all, as I would simply paraphrase Article 5 of Washington Treaty. If Canada or any other ally is under attack, all allies will stand up for it. It is important to say that this and collective defense works only if there is absolutely no doubt about our common resolve. And also, there cannot be any doubts on the side of our potential adversaries about this oath. We have to be always mindful what we say in this regard. At the same time, our resolve must be underpinned by continuously adapted military capabilities. Slovakia understands what sharing a common burden means and is doing its best to fulfill its commitments. Last year, Slovak defense spending reached 2% of GDP, and we devote about 30% of the resources to modernization of our military. Between 2014 and 2020, Slovakia increased its defense spending by 122%, what is the fourth highest increase in NATO. We contribute to NATO by improving our military capabilities, and also by our contributions to NATO missions, from Afghanistan to Iraq and Latvia, and many more in the past. Certainly, our engagement in international crisis management and missions and operations goes beyond NATO. We participate in the United Nations, European Union, and OSCE missions around the world. In 2020, we had almost 500 soldiers and members of police force abroad. And our biggest engagement remains for decades already, the UN peace mission in Cyprus. And let me finish this part by saying that Slovakia sees a great potential in security cooperation and coordination between the EU and NATO as well. Now, a few words about current and future challenges and threats. Security situation around us will not come as a surprise. In the recent years has worsened. It is less stable and it is less predictable. We live in a dangerous world. Rule-based international order is under strain. Great power competition is reappearing. Multilateralism is weakened. I mentioned hybrid warfare and disinformation at the beginning. Then we're still facing continuous threat of terrorism, cyber extremism, efforts of different actors to undermine our critical infrastructure in transport, energy, telecommunications. There are new security challenges allies and NATO must look at too, such as climate change, new technologies, including artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, also rising assertiveness on a global stage and quickly rising military capabilities of China are often mentioned these days. Last but not least, global pandemics showed us how vulnerable we are in health-related security issues, something we didn't really think about a year ago. 2014 brought a major change in our closest security environment and also a new geopolitical reality for the whole NATO and for its adaptation. Illegal annexation of Crimea and Sevastopol by Russia in 2014 is a grave breach of international norms. It created a situation without precedent in Europe since the end of the Second World War, and we deal with it with utmost attention until today. Russia is fueling a conflict in the eastern Ukraine in Donbas, what has caused thousands of lives and many internally displaced persons. Why? Why is this happening? Because clearly Russia does not clearly respect Ukraine's sovereignty, its free choice to have closer ties with the West, with the EU and NATO. And it is important that independent and sovereign nations have free choice where they want to belong, with whom they want to cooperate. Ukraine is Slovakia's neighbor. We care dearly for its stability, prosperity, security, and we support its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We support it in its reforms and in its Euro-Atlantic ambitions, something that we share closely with Canada. Russian behavior towards Ukraine is unacceptable for us, and there are other examples, such as Georgia. Very concerning is a recent enormous Russian military buildup at the Ukrainian border, in the Black Sea, and actually in a close proximity to NATO. Very concerning are findings about its subversive actions, such as the one in the Czech Republic related to the explosion of ammunition depot. This is again a very serious violation of international law. As you know, Czech Republic expelled 18 members of the Russian embassy staff in Prague recently. 4 other countries, 4 other allies, including Slovakia, follow suit. Slovakia expelled Russian diplomats in solidarity with Czechs, but also on the basis of our own findings about Russian malicious activities in Slovakia that were not, as we diplomats say, and it's true, in line with the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Still, we repeat, and we mean it. We want to have good, constructive, and predictable relations with Russia, based on mutual respect. But Russia must make it possible by respecting international rules and by its will to involve in a dialogue. Slovakia fully supports NATO dual-track policy towards Russia, the one of dialogue, as I mentioned, and deterrence. Slovakia takes part in the multinational battle group in Latvia, the so-called enhanced forward presence on the eastern flank of the alliance. Slovak soldiers serve there with other nations under Canadian command. It greatly contributes to our interoperability of our armed forces. And as I know from Slovak and Canadian ambassadors in Riga, it also creates great friendships. Slovak-Canadian cooperation in Latvia is highly appreciated by both countries, and certainly, as I know well, by our host, Latvia. Now, just a few words on upcoming summit of NATO on June 14th. Summit will discuss important topics on the further NATO adaptation to existing and new threats, on improving efficiency, on updating NATO's strategic concept. For Slovakia, it is extremely important that it also delivers a strong message on a transatlantic unity, commitment to a strong collective defense, and our shared values and principles: democracy, rule of law, human rights, respect for international norms. Let me finish by saying why the common values and principles matter in NATO and to NATO. We face rising threats, and there are threats in the future we might not know about and not consider them as such today. Our values is what keeps us together as democratic societies and allies, and what makes a difference between us and authoritarian regimes. It provides basis for our resilience and guidance in making together the right decisions. Thank you very much. I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you for those wonderful remarks, and you brought up a lot of really amazing points and important things that are happening right now. We're going to start with some questions from ourselves, and we might have some from our team at NATO come through at the end. So I'll start. Slovakia and Canada have shared close ties since establishing diplomatic relations in 1993. Whether it be through multilateral cooperation or mutual trade, how would you define our bilateral relationship?
Well, this is a wonderful question, and this is actually I'm here for in Canada as ambassador to build upon a wonderful relationship that we have between Slovakia since basically not only since the independence of Slovakia in 1993, but since 1918, since Czechoslovakia was created. So our relations go really a long way back to history. Our relations, they are very good. We certainly don't have any problems in our relations. We share what is important, values of democracy, rule of law, human rights. We are on the same page in supporting multilateralism, effective multilateralism, rule-based international order. We are friends, allies, and partners. We have very good cooperation, political, economic, and defense relations, and also strong ties on civic and human level. I would definitely highlight the transatlantic bonds, and we recognize how much Canada is important in keeping this bond strong and enduring. We share our common interest in supporting Ukraine, its prosperity and security and stability. We have close ties, as I mentioned before, between our armed forces. When we serve together in Latvia, in EFP, we also serve together in Iraq, and we serve together in Afghanistan. We share common concern and also willingness to always stand up for human rights. We are, for example, members of the International Media Freedom Coalition that is basically aims to support freedom of media in the world. Slovakia, for example, supports the declaration against the use of arbitrary detention in the status relations that Canada came up with recently. We support Canada in its request to have their two citizens in China, Spavor and Conrick, released. And we think all the situation is unacceptable and is a breach of international norms. In trade, both our countries are open economies. We very much are reliant on free trade routes, on free flow of goods and services. And we highly value our free trade agreement between the EU and Canada called CETA. It was signed during Slovak presidency in the European Union in 2016. Slovakia ratified as Canada for the CETA, and we benefit from it greatly because our trade volume was already increased thanks to CETA by about 20%. Interesting fact in a relationship between Canada and Slovakia is that our development aid system in Slovakia was built on Canadian model back around about 20 years ago. So this is another area where we are so close, and it's not that well known. On the human side, it's important to say that in Canada there are about 70 to maybe over 100,000 people of Slovak origin. Slovak people and Slovak culture is contributing to the diversity of Canada, and we are very proud that they are very important human link between both these countries. And I cannot forget to mention how much Canada is also very popular in Slovakia. We have a mobility agreement between both our countries. There is quota about over 300 people that can come to Canada for a year to study, to travel, to experience Canada. And for Slovaks, it's filled very, very quickly. And we would like to see more Canadians use this agreement and come to our country. And as the last point, I would mention, we both share enormous passion for hockey. This is always something that comes up. You wouldn't believe that we export hockey pucks to Canada, actually. And for example, the national coach of Slovak ice hockey national team is Canadian. And by the way, in my small town where I was born in Eastern Slovakia, in hockey team of town Michalovce, there are 5 Canadian ice hockey players. So, probably I could go on, but I will leave you to ask other questions. So thank you very much. This was wonderful for me to share this.
Thank you for your in-depth remarks on that particular question, Ambassador. Certainly the cultural ties are certainly very much apparent, whether it's, like you said, the over 100,000 Slovak people of origin here in Canada. And building off of sort of cultural ties, Slovakia has been particularly successful in furthering its interests in Europe through the Visegrad Group, which is a cultural and political alliance that is very unique in that front. What would you say is the importance of culture in international relations and multilateral cooperation? As you know, this field is typically seen as very cold and abstract.
Well, this is a very good question. But since you mentioned Visegrad, let me say just 2 sentences about Visegrad. It was established actually 30 years ago. It's celebrating 30 years of its existence. This is very important cooperation that we have with our neighbors. And we always say, your foreign policy and good relations always start with your neighbors. And I think that Canada knows something about it as well. So we are happy to cooperate with our neighbors, with Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary closely. The main aim of Visegrad cooperation 30 years ago was to help each other in joining the European Union and NATO. And I think this is the most important achievement of the Visegrad 4 until today. And as we work on many practical projects together, our cooperation, we say, must always make the European Union and NATO stronger and united. For the culture, I would definitely say culture makes a very important part of our job as diplomats, and it makes very important part of in international relations. I think that the culture is important for building relationships. Relationships matter to prevent conflicts, to solve any problems, and it is indispensable in work of diplomats and in relations between basically the countries of the world. So, however abstract it may seem, it is a very practical tool for making the relations between the countries of the world better and good.
For our next question, you raised the new threats that are emerging in terms of climate change or health crises such as the pandemic. What would you say is the best way forward for Canada and Slovakia to address these rising concerns for human security?
This is a very important question that we all pose to each other, especially today with pandemics. And I would say that a close dialogue and cooperation between allies and democracies and on all levels is very important. Also, the existence and solving things through multilateral institutions makes a really difference. We have to together, like-minded countries, we have to press for respect of rules and stand up always when international norms are being breached. We have to foster our alliances in this situation and leave no doubt for what we stand for. I think also in things such as climate change, we have to lead by example. And we in Canada, you in Canada, and we in the European Union I think we are examples in this. And I always say that we should never forget about our bilateral relationship between Slovakia and Canada and in different countries, because by nurturing them, we are understanding each other better, and we are able to cooperate always for the benefit of us all and wider community. Because our ultimate goal, I think, is to provide for a safe and prosperous environment for our societies, and just simply say for global peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Certainly quite a few things you mentioned there with regards to, again, closer multilateral cooperation, which seems to be at the center of all this. If I may then take the liberty to perhaps shift the conversation more towards Europe and Canada. Over the last 4 years, certainly we've seen a reduction in US leadership on the global stage. And I would just like to ask, how do you think this has affected Europe's relationship with their North American NATO allies? In particular, how did Slovakia and Canada's relationship change, if at all?
Thank you. Also, you have very good questions. So, United States is our strategic partner and crucial ally, and it has our full support and trust. I think we have to focus what is ahead. Dwelling on some glitches would only benefit our adversaries, and I think doesn't make any sense in our relationship that it goes really back in history and is very strong. Also, I would say that as you see, we all, Canada, European Union, we want to see United States globally engaged, and this is what is happening. Because we all know that vacuums are filled quickly and institutions without the US are weakened. And as far as security is concerned, Slovakia always say that we think that US military presence in Europe is also crucial for our security. So we certainly welcome the new US administration in resuming its leadership on a global stage, forging alliances with NATO, with the EU and beyond. And Slovakia calls for intensifying dialogue between the European Union and NATO, between the EU and United States. In June, we will have very important discussions at NATO summit. We are looking ahead to EU United States summit, to EU Canada summit. And mentioning Canada, Canada is a wonderful and stable partner for European Union, and we highly appreciate its role in keeping transatlantic bond strong. As we know, Canada has a very deep knowledge of the United States that we can always benefit from. And in transatlantic matters, Canada is wonderful interlocutor, and now as with many discussions, we have a difficulty to find things in which and on which we could disagree. So Canada plays a very important part also in the EU, United States, and transatlantic relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. For our next question, it kind of goes back to what you were just saying, that there's sometimes an overlap in regional organizations and alliances. Slovakia shares EU membership with countries who are not a part of NATO, and Slovakia, and of course, NATO shares membership with Canada, who is not part of the EU. How does Slovakia navigate these differing memberships, and what comes with these competing agendas?
Thank you very much. Well, I will catch you on the word competing. I don't think there is any competition. I think there is very close cooperation, and we want to have more of it. And we always strive for avoiding duplicity and having certainly complementarity in our efforts. Canada is not part of the EU. Sometimes we joke, not yet. But Canada is very like-minded with the European Union, is EU strategic partner. As we mentioned, this free trade agreement with the EU strategic partnership. So we very much value that Canada just joined EU mobility project, mobility of moving equipment and forces in Europe. So I disagree on competing. I would say there is a close cooperation. We need more of it, and I stress complementarity and basically close cooperation. Thank you.
So in times of peace, those who are dedicated to the rules-based international order have to reaffirm that they're willing to stand up. And you've talked about conveying this message to Slovakian citizens, and that is our mandate here at NATO Association, to convey this message to Canadians. How can Canada and Slovakia grow multilateral support from their citizens to better its involvement in international organizations such as NATO?
Well, support of the public, as we mentioned several times during this conversation, is very important, and this is necessary in democratic societies. I think we have to discuss challenges openly with people. We have to explain it to them. I think foreign policy and decision making cannot be something that is done and dealt with behind a closed door. I think in our societies we know that these things needs to be transparent, and we have to explain them to have the support of the population, because otherwise our decisions would be unsustainable, and it wouldn't simply work. We have to basically, while people are following situation in the world, and we are happy that while there are many conflicts in the world, we live in peace. At the same time, to steer fear about what is happening is very easy. And if we do not explain things to people, if we do not present them why we make some decisions, what we do in NATO or in different international things, there will be other actors that will take this role. There will be populists and extremists who will definitely use it for their ends and for their reasons, and we just cannot let this happen. I think we are in the fight of narratives. It is not easy to find lies when we rely on truth and facts. So I think our way is to provide facts, provide reasons, explain, and just we have to rely on common sense of people that with this they will support what we are doing.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Certainly, with foreign policy decisions, these are problems which at times may seem like a world away, to our domestic populations at home. So it is, like you said, very important to have open discussions so we can generate legitimate support for these decisions. Speaking of these decisions, the Slovak Parliament has recently adopted the government's revised security and defense strategies. And I believe these are the first new versions in well over 16 years, and they emphasize on the key role of NATO and multilateral cooperation. Could you expand on Slovakia's changing security concerns and the role that NATO will play therein?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, you are well informed. Yes, we passed our security and defense strategy recently after exactly the last time we had them updated was 2010. And since then, situation really changed. As I mentioned, we see much more instability in the world. We see less predictable world. We see our close neighborhoods changed very much. Slovakia is neighboring Ukraine, that is basically in a conflict Russia. So we see rising threats of terrorism. We see many things that we didn't see only basically 11 years ago. So it was very important to update the situation. And for us, what is the main point of this strategy is that we have to strengthen our alliances, that European Union and NATO are absolutely crucial in providing security, in helping us to provide security for our citizens. Certainly, the main responsible always is the Slovak government, but in complementarity with our membership with EU and NATO, I think we are on the right track to provide the basic task that every government has to provide secure life and secure society for its citizens. Definitely, I mentioned threats that we have to think about, and we have to adapt to hybrid warfare. We are preparing our own steps to counter disinformation in Slovakia, to counter cyber attacks as well. We have plans to strengthen our critical infrastructure as well. And on all this is not just a matter of foreign policy and defense, hard defense as such. I think this is the whole government and the whole society approach. We speak more and more, and we act on it, and we must act on it. It's the resilience of our societies altogether. And I think this takes the effort of the whole government, also NGOs such as yours in Canada and ours here in Slovakia, to prepare our societies for times that are unstable. This is very simple and plainly said. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. For our last question, I want to ask you something a little more informal. So you've had about 20 years in diplomatic service, and so you've had a very exciting career with postings and experience from France and the United States to your work under 2 Slovak presidents from 2013 to 2018. You've certainly seen a lot. What would you say are some of your notable highlights from your career, and what do you consider to be your greatest achievement in this regard?
Thank you very much. Well, a personal question. Well, as you said, time flies. It's been more than 20 years since I entered diplomatic service. It was, it was before we entered NATO. It was before we entered the European Union. So since then, Slovakia has changed a lot. And I definitely have to say that rather than highlight my special personal achievements, I always felt deeply honored, privileged and I felt a great deal of responsibility for representing my country abroad, whatever function it was. And whatever personal achievements we may live through, I always believe that this is always a common effort and team effort. We all have our own small piece in this mosaic of our work. And when you made me think about my 2 teenage daughters, who are my wonderful achievements. Through them, I realized how much Slovakia, in just less than 30 years of its independence, achieved. 98, fall of Iron Wall, 1993 independence, then a long way of enormous reforms. 2004 entry into European Union and NATO, adoption of Euro in 2009, you know, it's amazing how much all this effort, how much effort it all took, and how much we achieved. And I just hope I have that small piece of my effort and work in it, and just a very small personal memory. I forget, and I will never forget, when I was posted in France in 2003 to 2009, and I remember when we were raising the European Union flag in front of our embassy. It was an unforgettable feeling. I will never forget it. I think it changed our lives more than we sometimes even imagine. So, and we should never take this for granted.
Thank you for sharing those quite honest and frank moments with us, Ambassador. Certainly, the idea of, again, you know, the European Union and how integral it is to these countries. And even with Slovakia, like you mentioned, you know, through robust economic principles, it's one of the highest performers in terms of economics in Europe. So that certainly speaks to the strengths of the country. With that, I think we can bring our moderated questions to a close, because we do have questions from our audience. So I'll begin with the first one here. Does Slovakia support efforts to militarize the European Union, as in this is the EU's own sort of military? And will this come at NATO's expense?
This is a very good question. I would put it in any other way. We support that European Union takes more responsibility in security. Certainly, the world changes, and we have to change also in the European Union. And any ambitions of European Union in security and in defense have to be in complementarity with NATO. For Slovakia, NATO remains the main pillar of our defense, of our security, and strengthening European Union defense is part of this architecture. We very much support closer cooperation between European Union and NATO on security issues. We, as I mentioned before, we welcome that Canada became part of so-called PESCO project on military mobility recently. And I think in a security point of view, we have a lot of potential, a lot to gain when EU and NATO works together. So no, whatever is happening in the European Union will not come at the expense of NATO. It's a complementarity effort to our common defense.
Thank you, Ambassador. We have a question relating to the pandemic. So I think the pandemic has shown everybody in the international community what we all share in common and how we respond to common challenges individually. So our question is, why has Slovakia relied extensively on Russia's Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine? Has the EU been incapable of supporting its member states with quality vaccines made elsewhere? That's a tough one.
We were not extensively dependent on Sputnik vaccine. Our Sputnik vaccine is not used in Slovakia. It's still being assessed in Slovakia, in the European Union, whether that vaccine is safe. We are using in Slovakia only vaccines that were approved by European Medical Agency. And so this is basically the situation, and we are thankful to be member of the EU in these times, because as you know, in Canada, acquiring vaccines is definitely a huge competition in the world, and we are strongly convinced that it's much easier to get vaccines that we need through European Union, through this alliance of 27 countries 450 million people, it's much easier than by small Slovakia of 5 million. I think as a small country, we wouldn't have any chance to get appropriate number of vaccines. So no, Sputnik is not used, and European Union is crucial in providing vaccines to Slovakia.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your definitive statement there. We have one final question. I think we can have one last question, which we can squeeze in. And this is about CETA, which we've already talked about. So many EU states have not yet ratified the CETA agreement. And I'm sure there's some wisdom to that on their own, but Slovakia has. What, if anything, is Slovakia doing to internally push member states towards ratification?
Well, it's certainly everybody's decision by himself or for himself, for whatever country is making the decision. We do not interfere in decisions of other countries. We took our own responsible decision by ratifying this because we see benefits in CETA. As I mentioned, Slovakia is very open trade pro-export country. About 80% of our GDP is based on exports. So we are advocating for free trade agreements, and for us, CETA is working wonderfully. As I mentioned, our trade volume was increased by 20%. We hope to catch more interest from Canadian companies to benefit from this, because it's not a secret that we benefit from it more than Canada. We are very strong in exporting our cars to Canada. Maybe you know that Slovakia is a country that produces highest number of cars per capita in the world. This is 1 million cars a year coming out of our manufacturing companies, and this is also the main export. Maybe if you see on the road in Ottawa somewhere Porsche Cayenne, was made in Slovakia. And I'm sure these companies benefit from CETA, and all other small companies. There are at least 100 Slovak small and medium companies that are exporting to Canada. So Slovakia promotes CETA very much. We hope that it will be fully ratified because it brings benefits.
Right, certainly. With trade agreements like this, the freer, the more, the more the merrier at the end of the day. But thank you so much, Ambassador. Looks like that's all we have time for. We would like to convey our sincerest thanks to you from the NATO Association, to your colleagues, for agreeing to have this conversation and for your thoughtful remarks. With that, I will now pass it on to our acting manager, Emilio Angelis, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Adwet. And that's a wonderful note to end on. Ambassador, I'm sure you'll join me in thanking Adwet and Brittany for doing such an excellent job facilitating this conversation. This discussion was very insightful, and you've so eloquently explained the importance of the alliance and multilateralism throughout this conversation. And throughout it, the theme of non-zero-sum collaboration has been present in all of your responses. So thank you very much, Ambassador, and we can't wait to have you for a real event in person in the future. For those who are watching, I hope you will join us as we continue these discussions with NATO ambassadors and NATO partner ambassadors. Please do subscribe to our YouTube, NATO Canada, and keep in touch on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Instagram to make sure you don't miss out on any of our future events and stay involved. Ambassador, Adwet, Brittany, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you very much as well. Best wishes to everyone and to your association. All the best.
Thank you.